new wave of Iranian strikes triggered alarms across Israeli and occupied Palestinian territories. In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces detained 17 Palestinians during a series of raids in the occupied West Bank. More than 250 mayors from all the provinces of Argentina gathered to express their support to former President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. A new wave of Iranian strikes triggered alarms across Israeli and occupied Palestinian territories. Numerous ballistic missiles were launched from across Iran against Israel. Tel Aviv occupied Jerusalem and Ramallah, the occupied West Bank. Iran targeted Al-Qudayra power plant and the Netanyahu family home in the town of Caesarea near occupied Jerusalem. According to local media, U.S., British, and Israeli air defenses worked to intercept last missiles launched from Iran. Israel extended the nationwide state of emergency until June 30th. In this context, Prime Minister Netanyahu is currently heading to Bat Yam City, which has been lately stricken. On the other hand, the actions continue within the true promised free operation in Iran's legitimate right to defense. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi ensured that the nation was not willing to expand the conflict in the region. In this regard, the diplomat noted they would not plan other neighboring countries enter the war escalation with Israel. Likewise, the minister highlighted the Zionist regime boycotted the progress made in diplomatic relations with the U.S. He grounded in the fact that both nations had agreed to hold talks on June 15th, just a day earlier Israel launched its Rising Lion operation. Moreover, Araghchi underscored they had set assurances on the likelihood of a possible nuclear deal with the U.S. on the already cancelled sixth round of negotiations. Overall, the Israeli government has been crossing red lines, attacking nuclear facilities and civilians' households, while Iran has responded with true promised free operation.
We are ready for any agreement whose aim is to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, because that is our own doctrine. It is our own belief that nuclear weapons are forbidden and prohibited. But if the purpose of an agreement is to deprive Iran of its nuclear rights, then naturally, we are not prepared to accept such an agreement.
Iranian Foreign Minister further accused the Trump administration of collaborating with Israel in the recent strikes against the Islamic Republic.
We count up with broad evidence of how U.S. forces aided the Zionist regime. But beyond our evidence, the statements of President Trump are even more revealing. On his tweets yesterday, and on his interviews, where he openly expressed his support, he clearly asserted that such an operation would not have been possible without U.S. equipment, and that further steps would be taken. Therefore, from our perspective, the United States is complicit in these attacks and must hold responsibility.
Let's now take our first break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are going back on topic on the attacks of Israel against Iran and Iran's retaliation in its right to the legitimate defense. And for that, we have contact with our correspondent Junus who has more details on everything that is happening, and he can give us more context on everything that is happening right now in the Middle East. Welcome, Junus. What can you tell us from where you are?
Good afternoon here from Istanbul, from Turkey. The response, the first wave of response today from Iran to the Israeli aggression has started. According to Israeli media, more than 50 ballistic missiles were fired from the Islamic Republic of Iran against Israel. Targeted were cities such as Tel Aviv, which is the biggest city in Israel, but also places like Al Jazeera and the city of Haifa were targeted. Until now, we have some unconfirmed reports about explosions occurring in Tel Aviv. The Israeli air defense tries to stop these missiles, joined by American and British planes that also assist the Israeli state in its defense. But the missiles, at least some of them, seem to have arrived at their destination. And as I said, there are already some explosions reported, not yet in detail and confirmed, but reported from Tel Aviv, Israel's main city. In that context, it's worth mentioning that the conflict, the war, is not limited only to Israel and Iran, and not only limited to ballistic missiles, with which Iran responds to the Israeli aggression. There is also groups, militia groups in Iraq, Iran's neighboring country, which are allied with Iran and which have started targeting Syrian militia groups at the border around the village of Abu Kemal. This is important because Syria has become a place, a camp of debate, but its airspace is being used by Israeli warplanes to attack Iran. So this is a kind of ground response to that. Skirmishes are continuing there along the Syrian-Iraqi borders. And on the other side, in the Gaza Strip, there is the resistance continuing. Al-Qassam brigades announced that they have ambushed Israeli occupation soldiers in the Gaza Strip yesterday, killing one soldier and wounding several. This was also confirmed by the Israeli press. So this is an ongoing war which is not limited to Iran and Israel, but which has different components and which is not limited to ballistic missiles or air war, but has a ground aspect touching in the Syrian-Iraqi border and also continuing resistance in the Gaza Strip.
Yunus, I wanted to ask you, we just saw statements that were given by U.S. President Donald Trump to ABC News saying that it could be possible that the U.S. could get involved in this Iran-Israel conflict. What would be the impact of this, and how would regional actors react to this intervention of the U.S. in this conflict between Iran and Israel?
Well, first of all, here in the Orient, or as we prefer to call it, West Asia, everybody knows that the United States is already involved. It is providing Israel intelligence, it is providing Israel ammunition, it is providing Israel technology, and it is also providing Israel defense capabilities against Iranian responses to Israeli aggression. So in a certain way, the United States is already involved. What they refer to is an American attack on the Iranian territory or on Iranian facilities. This is something that is rejected over all of the governments here in the region, except the one of Netanyahu, of Israel, of course. Netanyahu demands that, but the other countries, the other governments in the region reject it, and this would incite a huge reaction. Already, the Iranian authorities had threatened that each and every U.S. facility, and there is like 50,000 soldiers, U.S. soldiers here around the region in different military bases from Turkey to Iraq to Qatar and to Saudi Arabia. So these would become all legitimate targets in the face of Iran or its allies. So this is something that is rejected region-wide, and that would turn this conflict into a ground war, a war on the ground, with different actors attacking these spaces. They are already a little bit threatened, as we see protests ongoing in Iraq, for instance, as we see political forces in Iraq demanding the retreat of US soldiers. The US presence in Syria is also hotly debated. Turkey rejects it. The Syrian government is also against it. So this would be a very dangerous move to make on Washington's side.
Thank you, Junus. We're going to stay in touch for upcoming news briefs so that we can continue to have all the latest updates coming from the region. We're going to continue now with other news also in the Middle East as Israel continues to carry out their raids on Palestinian territory. In this case, in its latest raid, it detained 17 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank in its latest raids in that occupied territory. According to local security sources, 9 citizens were arrested in the province of Nablus after the Zionist army raided several residential buildings. Likewise, 8 people were also reportedly arrested in the districts of Tulkarem and Bethlehem amid the Israel regime's raid and the destruction of several homes and business premises. These raids perpetrated by the occupation forces are carried out almost daily, mainly during the night hours, where many Palestinians end up being arbitrarily detained. In other news, more than 250 mayors from across Argentina gathered to express their rejection of former President Cristina Fernandez Kirchner's conviction. The criminal chiefs agreed in describing the decision of the Supreme Court of Justice in the Vialidad case as an orchestrated persecution. The leaders committed themselves to organize during the weekend multiple territorial meetings to ensure massive participation in the mobilization call for next June 18th. The demonstrations in support of the former president are multiplying in different parts of the national territory, demonstrating a support that transcends the weather adversities. Meanwhile, in Bolivia, President Luis Arce announced that he will continue with the operations to remove roadblocks in regions disrupted by protests, demanding that former President Evo Morales be allowed to run in upcoming elections. Arce reported that police and military forces are working to lift the blockades in Potosí, Chiquisaca, and Santa Cruz. In this regard, authorities are taking action to guarantee free transit and the safety of citizens and prevent food shortages. President Arce also condemned acts of political violence and what he described as illegal methods in the exercise of democracy. And going to the United States, tensions continue to rise on the streets of downtown Los Angeles as police try to disperse protesters. As police fired flashbangs and canisters of tear gas, protesters responded with loud fireworks and calls to halt the line. Masses of demonstrators crowded the street, parks, and squares across the U.S. on Saturday to protest President Donald Trump marching through downtowns and small towns, blurring anti-authoritarian chant mixed with support for protecting democracy and migrant rights. Confrontations were isolated. However, police used tear gas and crowd control munitions to clear out protesters in Los Angeles, where protests over federal immigration enforcement raids erupted a week earlier and sparked demonstrations across the country. And during demonstrations in Salt Lake City, Utah, against President Donald Trump, a shooting took place in which at least one person was seriously injured. Local authorities says the injured individual, whose life is at risk, has been taken to the hospital. Officials are conducting an active investigation into the incident and have stated that they are holding an individual of interest in custody. Images of the alleged shooter, who has been arrested, are circulating on social media. Police have asked protesters to release videos and photos of the shooting. Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, citizens joined the protests against Trump's anti-migration policies, rejecting the raids carried out by the Immigration and Customs Control Service. Hundreds of people gathered in Old San Juan, being part of the mobilizations that are taking place in different cities of the United States. Some of the demonstrators took the opportunity to denounce the collaboration of the Puerto Rican government with the U.S. government, handing over information of migrants to facilitate the detention and deportation processes. The activists present at the protest called to confront Trump's measure and the Immigration and Customs Control Service, who have carried out at least 568 detentions linked to migration status. And in other news, a helicopter crashed on Sunday in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand, killing all 7 people on board. It was an Iranian aviation company helicopter with 1 pilot and 6 passengers on board, 5 adults and 1 child. The aircraft crashed at about 5:20 local time in a forest between Gaurikund and Somprayag, while on a short flight from Kedarnath temple to Gupkashi town. According to preliminary information, the accident was a result of bad weather and technical problems. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.